Hello and welcome to the HPPO show. Got a great show for you today. Today's topic is models, and more specifically we're going to talk about card counting. Today's objective, we're going to be making some monster cards. We have to finish our monster cards and our quest cards before we start beta testing. And before I start beta testing, I will need to run a lot of models for the game so that I get the powers right for the epic monsters and the monster cards themselves to make the game fun and challenging and predict the difficulty before I actually put it through the fire. Alright, let's talk about blackjack. So, card counting is pretty well known at this point in time. Right. Blackjack is the most favorable game you can play at a casino, with the odds being in the house's favor 0.5% of the time. Right. So you have almost a 50-50 shot of winning any game of blackjack. But if you play 100 games, right, your skill really doesn't matter. What matters is that you will lose 51% of the time. So if you made the same bet for 100 games, the house is going to walk away with more money than you came with. Simple enough. But if you perfect card counting, the odds get into your favor once the deck's in your favor. So card counting's simple enough. Right, most casinos run between 6 to 8 decks, and they use this to prevent card counters because then the count is harder to maintain. Whereas if there was only one 52 card deck, you could know very clearly, like, oh, well, we've already seen all the 10s, jacks, queens, there's 2 kings left in the deck, and there's 1 ace. So I'm probably going to be able to beat the dealer with my next hand before you even know what your cards are. Because with blackjack, you bet before you get the cards in the first place. So you have to bet based on whether or not you think you're going to win before you have any chance to take a hit or the dealer makes any moves. Now, the most effective strategy in card counting is this high-low strategy where you assign point values to the range of cards, right? +1 for cards 2 through 6, 0 for 7, 8, and 9, and -1 for 10 through ace. So this way you just have to see, oh, so if you see 2 aces, if you get 2 aces, hit, and get a king, right, you're going to get 21. You're going to win that hand. And the dealer shows they have an 8 and a 5, and they hit at 2, right? They'll be at 15, and they'll have to hit again, right? So if they hit again and get another 2, the running count for this would be -1, -1, -1 for all your cards, and then 0 for that 8, +1, +1 for those 2 cards you saw, and then +1. Or the total would be 0. So everything just canceled out. Now, as soon as the count is like -2, -3, -4, -5, that's when you have a much better chance of winning the next hand. And you get closer to 51%, 52% chance that you're going to win the next hand. So that means if you started betting big for the next 3 hands, right, you would walk away with a lot more money, so that once the count evens out again to close to 0 or becomes positive, then you can resume normal betting to get through that slush and get your count back on track. Now, both you and the house know this, I don't recommend people actually card count because they'll ban you from the tables. Also, it is illegal if you use any sort of assistive device, if you use your phone, if you use a mechanical counter. It has to all be in your head. And so even if you have a smartwatch on you or a smartphone, the casino could charge you with using that device. So you got to go completely deviceless. Yeah, and you don't want to end up in jail. Now, why is this important to modeling? Both the card counter and the casino pit boss are using models besides the model that was built here so that you can get the edge against casinos, right? The pit boss knows that if someone's making the minimum bet for a long period of time, then starts betting big, the pit boss doesn't need to know that the exact count of the deck, right? That's not information he needs, but he's seen it enough times that, oh, this person may be card counting. And that's how their predictive models work, right? But if you're betting erratically and keeping count, then you can counter the pit boss's model and hopefully walk away. Now, there are other signs, right? If somebody's playing blackjack and they're not drinking alcohol, right? That's a sign they may be somebody to watch. And if they think you're a card counter, what they're going to do is either try to find how you're cheating so they can arrest you and make an example of you, get that pit boss a nice little bonus, or they will switch the dealers so that your count goes from whatever it was to 0 and now you have to start again. Right, in general, with the way the cards are dealt and with the probability of this counting system, the counts are always going to be close to -1, +1, so you won't really have a significant edge until the counts are far into the deck. And it's still gambling, so you're still not guaranteed to win the game. Now, in Freelander Adventures, we don't have the problem of having loot and rewards that tilt the favor in the game's favor, right? You're not going to run into situations like this card strategy's counted up, right, where it has +1s, right? Every card that the players get will tilt the game into the player's favor. So we have to set the numbers right off the bat to account for that so that the players only win about 70% of the game, right? 50% of the games with no skill, 70% of the games with skill, and 30% of the games bad RNG, right? This is how you build a fair and challenging game, is every 4 games, right, they're guaranteed to lose, but it may be because they made some mistakes or because that's just the way the numbers are going to work out. And the players should never really know which is which. So I'm going to be working on building a model, and I'll present that to you guys next week of how I will start assigning values to the cards. Because with Freelander Adventures, our 4-player cooperative card game, we have it set up so that each player takes 3 actions on their turn, they take 3 turns, and then they begin epic monster combat. So while we can't account for whether or not players are just going to focus on drawing equipment cards, feat cards, or go on as many quests as possible, right? What we can account for is assigning a value to all the cards we've already generated, and then running scenarios based on that without actually having to fishbowl. And fishbowl is a term used for Magic the Gathering playtesting, where you physically run through your deck game after game after game to see, okay, what are my drawing patterns, and get a feel for the statistics there. Like, fishbowling is really helpful in games like Magic the Gathering where you have a 60 card deck, but it doesn't show you what it would be like to play against other people, and so that's why Friday Night Magics and online play and having a play group are very important, so that you can test your deck against other decks and build a cohesive strategy around there. Now, since this is a single deck game, right, but it will require the actions of 4 separate people, it makes it way more complex to try to fishbowl it from one person's perspective, as well as, I think, counterproductive. Like, the few good things about our predictive model is when it comes to epic monster combat, we'll only have the damage dealt to the epic monster based on the character with the highest strength. So we have a lot of these abilities and loot cards and quest rewards that are going to be nice on the individual play, but irrelevant as far as the epic monster combat is concerned. And epic monster combat is the potential to lose the game, right? Every 3 rounds, that's where the potential is to lose the game. And that potential should be like 10% for the first monster, 20% for the second monster, 30% for the third monster, so that we keep that really clear 30% win rate. Right, and by the time you get to the third monster, you should have enough understanding Alright, so that's all I really got to say about the game topic this week. Let's get on with today's work and design some more monster cards. So, if you're on YouTube watching, don't forget to like this, share it, and join us next Friday so that you can help pitch in and we can create, I think next Friday we'll be doing non-combat quests. So if you want your story idea in there and you want to help get your username on some cards and help us build this, that'd be great. Join us next Friday, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And now, through the magic of editing, here's a summary of what we did today. So this is what we did today. We already had 4 combat cards. Now, what we did, we're going to have to go back and redo all the special loot we just made for these combat cards to fit with our intelligence, wisdom, strength, constitution, dexterity, charisma sliders to make all the special rewards from combat useful. But right now we have 18 combat cards, so we have the bare minimum of combat cards that we need for beta testing, right? Because we can get through 1 full game with these 18 cards, and then we'll need 18 non-combat quest cards. And based on that, right, we can create a few more so that all the game types are varied. I think our quest deck has to be a minimum of 36 cards, but we're probably going to make it about 60 cards. So we're going to double all these numbers by the end. But, alright, on to what we did today. Card number 5, Nightwalker. Design note, spawn inspired. Challenge, combat head-to-head roll, win 3 combat dice toss. If you lose, roll 1d3 for damage. Clerics, cast any healing spell to win instantly. Reward, if you're a cleric, draw 2 loot cards. Otherwise, suit of living nightmare armor. +5 constitution if a cleric casts a spell. Discard if a cleric casts a spell. Card 6, Claw Hands McGree. Design note, Wolverine inspired. Win 2 combat rolls. If you lose, roll 1d4 for damage. Ranged characters get 2. Don't take damage for the first 2 rounds. Yeah. Ranged characters don't take damage for the for losing their first roll. Reward. Draw 1 face down equipment card. Bonus, if you took no damage, draw 2 loot cards. So we're going to want special reward. If I can spell special. Special reward will make claw hands. Card number 7, skeletons just chillin'. Design note, frozen skeletons just chillin' in a graveyard. Challenge, win 4 combat rolls. If you lose, roll 1d3 for damage and a d10. If the d10's number is less than 3, take an additional d3 of damage. Optional, roll a d10, add your charisma. If higher than 25, you win instantly. So we're telling a story with mechanics here, right? If you roll the d10 and you roll less than a 3 or less, then you take an additional d3 of damage, which means you basically automatically lost your next combat roll, right? So the way combat rolls will work, right, is you're going to roll a d10, they're going to roll a d10, and the higher number wins. So for 4 combat rolls, you want to win 4 times in a row, and then you don't take damage. So you'll roll a d10, they'll roll a d10. If your number's higher, you win. You roll a d10, they roll a d10, your number's higher, they win. You roll a d10, they roll a d10. And by they, I mean you'll be rolling the monster die. And the monster dies are already weighted in the player's favor because they're going to have more lower numbers than they are just traditional 1 through 10. Alright, optional, roll a d10, add your charisma. If higher than 25, you win instantly. This is the story we're telling, is these skeletons are just chilling, and they have freezing effects, but if your charisma is high enough, right, you can, before you start the challenge, you can try to win based on charisma alone, and just chill with the skeletons, right? You get the loot, and special reward, frozen bones. Card number 8, Super Brooding Prince, design note, inspired by Batman, Lex Luthor's City of Heroes tech archetype. Challenge, win 2 combat rolls. If you lose, take 3d3 of damage. Optional, discard an equipment card to win instantly. Reward, draw 3 loot. Special, attack better, plus bonus to all cards. Okay. Inspiration, you never know when it's going to strike. So if you are the charisma / dexterity player, you'll get plus bonus to all your loot draws, right? If you're the intelligence wisdom character, you'll get plus bonus to all your feat cards. If you're the strength constitution guy, you'll get plus bonus to all your equipment cards. That's pretty self-explanatory. And again, we're telling stories through the gameplay itself, just by these mechanics, right? If you have the charisma dexterity, you obviously have more money to get more loot. If you have the intelligence, you have world-class detective skills, the smartest man, Lex Luthor skills, right? If you have the strength, then that augmented with the bat suit or other equipment cards just makes that better. Simple enough. Card number 9, name Footballing Jocks, inspired by the Archie Comics footballers. Challenge, win 3 combat dice tosses or take 2d3 of damage. Contest. Have a contest of strength, roll a d10, add your strength to the roll. If the roll, win if the number is higher than 18. So that's really simple. Reward, one of the guys a flat +4 to charisma. Yeah, and we'll adjust that as necessary. Card 10, Premier Putin, PhD, inspired by Dr. Doom and Putin. Vladimir Putin, right? The guy in charge of Russia. I hope he doesn't find this offensive. Win 3 combat dice tosses or take 1d3 damage for each dice toss you have lost cumulatively this turn. So this guy gets really dangerous really fast if you start losing a lot of die. If you start losing a lot of the tosses. Right? Because as soon as you lose one dice toss, that breaks your streak and you lose. Right? You take that d3. So if you lose a couple in a row, you're going to be taking quite a bit of damage. Roll a d10, add your wisdom if the number is higher than 25, win. And we'll make it so the special award is a title. I don't know what that'll look like yet. Card number 11, Karate Kicking Koalas, inspired by TMT and Daredevil. Win 1 combat dice toss or take 1d3 of damage. If your dex is higher than 15, win. So this is a really easy one to beat. Green Ooze of the Open Hand. If you take damage, tap this card. If this card is tapped, you have +6 to dexterity. Draw 1 loot card. So again, we'll be adjusting that. Name Druid Hunter. Design note inspired by Alan Scott. Alan Scott, the first Green Lantern. Win 2 combat dice toss or take 1d3 of damage. Druids win instantly. Alan Scott had a big weakness as the first Green Lantern to wooden axe handles. It's quite hilarious. Rewards, Ring of Life +5 hit points and 1 loot. Card number 13, Temptress, inspired by the Odyssean Witch. So when Odysseus goes to that island and that witch offers him food, Odysseus and his men, Odysseus doesn't eat any of the food, but his men do, and they turn to pigs. You're going to want to win 3 combat dice tosses or take 2d3 of damage. Paladins automatically win, because like Odysseus, they are quite chaste. Words of favor, discard this to add +20 to your charisma until end of turn. Alright, see the beauty is we just need to really put one thing per special award, and then we can modify it based on the classes, so that all the special awards will help out strength, intelligence, dexterity, and all the stat bases, and not be geared towards class-specific things themselves. While we can do class-specific things on the cards, on the quests that you complete, so that you want to run into those, and see your friends run into them and whatnot, and be like, my friend took 6 damage, I could have easily just beaten that because I'm a druid and he's not. So that's the kind of dynamic we want. But we don't want your friend to be like, oh, this is useless because I'm not a druid, I'm not an intelligence character, I'm a strength character. We don't want them to have any useless rewards. Alright, name, Gingerbread Snatch. Design note, inspired by Hansel and Gretel Witch, except they're sexy. Challenge, win 1 combat dice toss or take 1/3 rounded down of your charisma as damage. So this gets really bad if you're a high charisma character, but you should have like a 60% chance of winning right off the bat. Roll a d10, add your intelligence. If the number is higher than 20, win. Rewards for loot, recipe book, discard this to draw any 2 cards from the discard pile. Manmer, inspired by merman. So I'm thinking a very disgusting fish top. Fish top grows with 6-pack, abs, plastic holder. Win 2 combat dice tosses, Manmer gets a +4 bonus to his rolls. Manmer gets -1 to his rolls for every 5 points of constitution your character has. Take 1d3 of damage. So you have to fight the Manmer. There's no opt out of that. And this will either be very difficult or extremely easy, right? If you have 15 as your constitution, which is very, very possible, right? then the Myanmar is only going to get +1 to his roll. Yeah, I'm going to +3. +2. There we go. Yeah. Alright, rewards, scales, +5 to Constitution. Remember, Constitutions come into effect during Epic Monster Combat. For every 5 Constitution you have, you're going to get 1 shield that you can protect your teammates from. Card 16, Giant Spider, Design Note, Giant Spider, of course. Challenge, win 4 combat dice tosses and take 1d3 of damage. Add +1 to your rolls for every 5 points of strength. Special reward, Spider Silk, discard to skip a dungeon. Card 17, name, no name. Design Note, inspired by The Forgotten, MIB, and Amnesia. Win 3 combat dice tosses or take 2d3 of damage. Optional, roll a d10, add your intelligence. If the roll is higher than 26, you win. So again, I only really expect like the stat bonuses to be around the starting stat. The stat range itself after the first Epic Monster Combat, I expect it to be geared around 12 to 15, right? So this is clearly, you're not going to win unless you're very high or you roll high enough, because you're going to want to roll the 10 with the +16 halfway through round 2 of the questing. So in later games it becomes easier to win this intelligence roll. Unless of course you get a loot temporary bonus to your intelligence and things like that. Rewards, discard any amount of cards, draw that many cards of a similar type. Again, we'll split that into thirds for all the stats. Special rewards, tonic of memory, tap remove all stat affecting afflictions. Number 18, name, vampire, design note, vampire. Win 2 combat dice tosses, take 1d3 of damage. Special, discard to swap your remaining hit points with the hit points of another character in your party. Rewards, 1 loot card for each point of health you're missing from your health total. So this is interesting in that you want, like, losing to this is not a bad thing, because then you get more loot the more you win. But we'll probably have a runaway mechanic in this game so that you can run away from combat you're not going to want. Alright, that's it for this episode. Leave a comment down below, like, subscribe, and all that jazz. Come join us next Friday at twitch.tv, HNGYHPPO. And yeah, next Friday I think we'll be doing more quest cards, because we knocked out the half and the bare minimum I need for playtesting for these. So then we're going to finish that, and we'll be one step closer to getting ready to playtesting. The lesson for next week will probably just be me explaining the models that I'm going to build, so that I don't have to fishbowl this and I can run probabilities through a spreadsheet. Alright, and with that I leave you. Thanks so much for joining us, and of course, if you would like to support, feel free to buy a copy of my book, The Duke and the Dragon, Contract Man Issue 3. I can use reviews, and yeah, that is the best way you can support me right now. Alright, thank you so much. Have a good night.